All right, welcome back in, everyone. I have the NFL on CBS as the background noise. I figured I might as well get that bit of a change up. I gotta say, this is probably one of my second favorite intros when it comes to football. Obviously, the NFL on Fox stands out from anything else. So I now am going to be reviewing all of Week Nine's games, who I predicted would win, who actually won, the ultimate score, and their record as we speak. So the Thursday night matchup took place between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Tennessee Titans. I did think because of their massive game in Week 8, the Titans would have a bit of momentum coming into this matchup. Unfortunately, it was not meant to be. 20-16 was the final score in favor of Pittsburgh. Steelers now improved to 5-3 on the season, while the Titans have now dropped to 3-5. Taking a look at the next matchup, and I didn't do my homework on this one, so I apologize ahead of time, where we had the host Kansas City Chiefs, and they were taking on the Miami Dolphins. Obviously, the big news for this matchup is the return of Tyreek Hill playing against his former team. The game was being played in Germany, of all places, so I thought maybe kind of a coincidence that they had him come play against his former team, but ultimately they didn't want to have this in front of the Kansas City Chief fan base because obviously he requested a trade out of the area, so I'm sure there'll be some salty fans out there, to say the least. So I did predict that Miami would get the victory, but unfortunately, it was not meant to be. They were down big. It was like 21-0 at one point. They were able to make a bit of a game of it, make it 21-14 as the final score, but obviously they fell one score short of tying the game and ensuring that they would get a victory. So with the loss, Miami is now sitting at 6-3. And with the victory, the Chiefs, I believe, are now the top team in the AFC, sitting at 7-2. The rest of the games take place in America, so there's no other international games to report of as of we speak. So the first matchup takes place in Atlanta, where we have the host Atlanta Falcons, and they're taking on a team that I didn't have a whole lot of hope for, especially after their quarterback went down with a season-ending injury in Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings. So I did predict that Atlanta would get the victory only because I'm not trying to disrespect Josh Dobbs, but to me, he didn't seem the kind of guy that would come into a team and take over, but he did, and he got the victory for the Vikings. Final score 31-28 in favor of Minnesota. So obviously a huge victory for this Minnesota team. With the victory, they are now sitting at 5-4, and with the loss, the Atlanta Falcons have now dropped to 4-5. So far, I'm over 3 on the picks, not doing too great. Take a look at the next matchup, which takes place in Baltimore. Where we have the host team Ravens taking on the Seattle Seahawks. I did predict that Baltimore would get the victory, and boy oh boy, did they ever crush the Seahawks in this matchup. 37-3 is the final score in this one. With the victory, Baltimore, I guess they are now tied with the Chiefs when it comes to their overall records. They are both sitting at 7-2, and with the loss, the Seahawks are still above 500. They are sitting at 5-3. The next match takes place still in the AFC North, where we have the host Cleveland Browns, and they were taking on the Arizona Cardinals. So for me, when a team only has one win, especially over halfway into the season, it's more likely than not that the team that doesn't have more than one win should be victorious. I did predict that Cleveland would get the victory. 27-0 was the final score. So it just goes to show how horrendous the Cardinals are in this 2023 campaign. With the victory, Cleveland's now improved to 5-3. With the loss, Arizona is now sitting at 1-8. Next matchup takes place in the NFC North, where we have the host Green Bay Packers, and they were taking on a team from the NFC West in the Los Angeles Rams. I did predict that LA would get the victory, Again, neither team has really showed me that consistency that they are the better team in this matchup. But final score was 20-3. So it just goes to show that the Packers ultimately were the better team in this matchup, and they finally stopped their 3-game losing streak. So I'm sure if you're a Packers fan, that's huge news to finally get back in the win column. So the Packers are now sitting at 3-5, and with the loss, Los Angeles Rams are sitting at 3-6. Next matchup takes place in the AFC South, where we have the host Houston Texans, and they were taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, I'm going to be real with you. I honestly thought that when Tampa Bay had that hot start to the beginning of the year, that, hey, maybe they don't miss Brady as much. They can still be competitive. But it seems like they've just been kind of falling off the rails as of late. I really wish I knew exactly what was going on. Obviously, having a quarterback in Mayfield, maybe that plays a factor. The defense, whatever the case may be, is. But there's just a lot of factors that are playing into this Buccaneers team right now that is not consistent enough for me to believe in them moving forward. The final score in this one was a shootout. Not gonna lie, 39-37 was the final score in favor of the Texans. With that victory, Houston's now brought the record back to 500. They're sitting at 4-4, and with the loss, the Buccaneers are now sitting at 3-5. The next matchup takes place in Foxborough, where we have the host New England Patriots, and they were taking on the Washington Commanders. I did predict that New England would get the victory only because I thought, there was a glimmer of hope that this team wouldn't be as bad as they are. But, they're not doing that great in this 2023 campaign. Hold on a second. This is extremely blurry. There we go. It's somewhat focused now. Still hazy, but it'll do. So 20-17 was the final score in favor of the Washington Commanders. They are now sitting at 4-5. And with the loss, the Patriots are, they're not doing that great. 2-7 is where they sit at the end of week number 9. Next matchup takes place in Louisiana, where we have the New Orleans Saints, and they are taking on the Chicago Bears. I did predict that the Saints would get the victory in this one, and they sure did. It was a one-score game. 24-17 is the final score. With the victory, the Saints are now above 500, sitting at 5-4. And with the loss, the Bears are sitting at 2-7. The next matchup takes place in the NFC South as well, where we have the host Carolina Panthers, and they were taking on the Indianapolis Colts. Team's logo should appear on the screen. Okay. I did predict that Indy would get the victory in this one. They actually won by 2 scores. 27-13 is the final. With the victory, Indy's now pulled a little bit closer back to 500. They are sitting at 4-5. And with the loss, the Hurricanes are now sitting... The Panthers are now sitting at 1-7. Come on. There we go. Okay. Next matchup takes place in Nevada, where we have the Las Vegas Raiders, and they were playing host to the New York Giants. So the big thing there's 2 things that I'm going to take away from this contest is obviously the Raiders are now starting their tenure without their head coach Josh McDaniels, and for the Giants, a huge blow to a season that's already come falling off the rails. Obviously, they lost Daniel Jones for the rest of the season, so after signing that huge contract, he has not lived up to his expectations. That's just my personal opinion. Final score on this one was 30-16 in favor of the Las Vegas Raiders. With the win, the Raiders are now almost back to 500. They're sitting at 4-5. And with the loss, the Giants are sitting at 2-7. The next matchup, and in my opinion, possibly the game of the week, between 2 NFC East foes in the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys. I did predict that Philadelphia would get the victory in this one. I should have mentioned that the previous game, I picked the Raiders to win, and they did. So with this one, I did predict that Philly would get the victory. Towards the end of the game, it didn't seem like any of the teams were willing to. They wanted to win, like the penalties, and for both teams is what really factored into the outcome of this final of like the final couple of minutes of this drive of the game. Anyway, I'm kind of rambling on about that. But the Eagles ultimately came away with the victory. 28-23 was the final score. With the victory, the Eagles are now on top of the NFC with a 8-1 record. And even though the Cowboys lost, they are still above 500, sitting at 5-3. The Sunday night matchup took place in Cincinnati, where we have the host Bengals, who are absolutely on fire. And to be honest, this is the team that I was expecting to come into this regular season, and they were taking on the Buffalo Bills, who have been struggling, to say the least. I did predict that Cincy would get the victory, and boy, oh boy, did they ever. Final score 24-18. So it wasn't really a blowout, still a one-score game, but this is now 5 straight wins for the Bengals. They were obviously sitting at 5-3, and with the loss, the Bills are sitting at 5-4. So for a team that had a lot of expectation coming into this year, the Bills have not lived up to that at all. And the final game took place in New York, where we have the host team Jets, and they were taking on the Los Angeles Chargers. I did predict that the Chargers would get the victory. I didn't think it was going to be a blowout the way it was, but hey, you don't have control of how teams play and don't play. 27-6 was the final score in favor of Los Angeles. With the victory, the Chargers are now pulled themselves back to 500. They are sitting at 4-4, and with the loss, the Jets are now back to 500, sitting at 4-4 as well. So overall, or my weekly predictions and losses that I had right and wrong, I was 8-6, which now brings my overall record to 79-50. So almost 30 games above 500. I'll take that over anything. As always, if you like this type of content and you're new to the channel, please feel free to hit the sub button. I'd be very grateful and very appreciative at the same time. As always, take care.